Hello everyone, welcome to VENKANNA ENGLISHGURU. Friends, are you seriously preparing for UGC-NET, NTA-ENGLISH AP set examination? Do you really have a lot of problems with regard to understanding literary criticism and critical theories of literature? So, if you are, this video is for you. Friends, with regard to Unit 8, this is all about literary criticism. How to read this unit and what points are to be kept in a very short period. And when you really want to have a very wonderful score with regard to literary criticism, what concepts are to be actually focused and who are the critics are to be read, what components, what critical terms are to be focused, and these are very important in this short span of time. And if you are really struggling with this literary criticism, and this video is for you. Okay friends, so when you talk about this literary criticism, and you need to first focus on what is criticism, and what are the various popular definitions that are given by popular critics like Aristotle, Socrates, Plato. Next, you can also say, and what are the popular terms that are given by Aristotle and T.S. Eliot or Matthew Arnold or S.T. Coleridge, I.A. Richards. Like, based on that, you should know some important basic concepts. Next, you should also know what is the purpose of this criticism, what are the objectives of this criticism, why criticism is to be used. And when you read novel or poetry or short story, how criticism is actually employed. You need to know the major objectives and what is the best criticism. Next, what are the types of criticism? Broadly, you can say there are mainly two important criticisms: theoretical criticism, practical criticism. Theoretical criticism, and if you focus on writers like Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, Longinus, Horace, okay, next Pindar, and the writers like John Dryden or Ben Jonson, Robert Greene or S.T. Coleridge or Matthew Arnold. So till the end of 19th century, if you focus, that literature is if you focus on those writers and those critical works and the critical techniques that were popularized by these critics, if you read them, that is called theoretical criticism. And what important techniques that were proposed by these critics, you need to have a glance. Next, practical criticism. Practical criticism actually became so popular only with the publication of Lives of English Poets, that is actually composed by Dr. Johnson, who is also called Samuel Johnson. And he was the person and who started the process of using the practical criticism for the first time at the end of 18th century. So what are the critical concepts that were introduced by Dr. Johnson and William Wordsworth, John Keats, P.B. Shelley, S.T. Coleridge, Matthew Arnold? From that way, you need to go further till the beginning of 20th century and T.S. Eliot, I.A. Richards, F.R. Lewis, Virginia Woolf. So till 1920, 1930, if you cover all these 10 writers, those literary concepts, those critical concepts, those critical works that were proposed by these writers come under practical criticism. And it can be objective criticism. Practical criticism can be objective criticism, mimetic criticism, judicial criticism, impressionistic criticism. Like it has different varieties. You need to read those concepts. Next friends, and you need to cover, and if you really want today, once you analyze the bits of today's examination, and you need to focus on these classical writers and their concepts, and you need to focus on what are the books written by Plato and how as a critic he is known to the world, and what are the critical concepts that were employed by Plato, Aristotle, Longinus for example on the sublimity, or Aristotle, or you can say catharsis, tragedy and comedy, or you can say three unities, hamartia, comic relief, and peripetia, denouement, anagnorisis. All these are various technical terms that were employed by Aristotle and in the book Poetics. And you need to know what are the important critical works written by Aristotle. Longinus on the sublimity. What is sublimity? Who employed again the sublimity, like John Keats? Connection. Horace. Next, you need to read Ars Poetica and some basic knowledge. And who are all these writers? What techniques and concepts were proposed by these important writers? And in what are the books, critical books that these writers have written and you need to know. The book on the sublimity is written by, poetics is written by, and the republic is written by, arts poetic is written by. Like you need to read the major important and 50 to 100 important critical texts that were written by these classical writers. You need to have a glance. And who imitated the poetic techniques that were introduced by these writers in criticism, in English literature, in American literature, in Indian writing in English. You need to read them who imitated these writers and the techniques that were proposed by these writers. You need to have a glance. Next, and English criticism and concepts, list of English writers like Sir Philip Sidney, John Dryden, Alexander Pope, Samuel Johnson. Samuel Johnson, my friends, you need to read, and lives of English poets and life of Abraham Cowley. Very, very important, very coined different poets called different poets and their characteristics from Chaucer to Thomas Gray. And you need to read and the major important critical concepts introduced by Dr. Johnson. Alexander Pope about heroic couplet, about his critical thoughts. John Dryden about his discourse concerning satire and about the critical work. And Sir Philip Sidney, and you can see the popular work, and like you need to have a very wonderful glance on them. Next, English writers like S.T. Coleridge, you need to know what are fancy, imagination, willing suspension of disbelief, or Waverley novels, Waverley poems, or else you can say primary imagination, secondary imagination, symplastic imagination. Next, andragogy or androgynous. All these are technical terms associated with S.T. Coleridge, and you need to read Biographia Literaria and the major important aspects like chapter 13 and 14 about fans and imagination. Several times these bits are commonly repeated. P.B. Shelley and his critical works. John Keats and his ideas of negative capability, synesthesia and sublimity, and what he actually talks about as part of this, you need to focus. Next, Matthew Arnold, very, very important, my friends. Matthew Arnold and T.S. Eliot. When you talk about Matthew Arnold, what is touchstone method, what is Philistinism, what is culture, what is anarchy, and what is function of criticism, and what are the important quotations that he actually spoke about. Next, Sigmund Freud, what is id, ego, superego, Oedipus complex, electro complex, conscious, subconscious, unconscious, and the interpretations of dreams, what he actually talks about in terms of literature. Next, T.S. Eliot, plenty of critical texts like the metaphysical poets, Hamlet and his problems, and poetry and dogma. So there are plenty of critical texts, essays that were composed by T.S. Eliot, where he talks about dissolution of sensibility, objective correlative, symbolism, whatnot. He talks about plenty of poetic techniques, plenty of critical techniques you need to focus. Next, I.A. Richards, known for Basic English Project, and F.R. Lewis, Virginia Woolf, William Epson, the 7 types of ambiguity, the books, ambiguity, 7 types of ambiguity, and where they actually become a part, and till 1920 or 30, and all these are very popular important critics and what they have actually wrote about as a part of English literature, and what are the critical concepts that they have actually proposed, and what are the important essays, books that they composed with regard to criticism. You need to have a very wonderful reading so that you will have a wonderful score with regard to and literary criticism as a part of Unit 8, my friends. Focus on that, and all the best. And in future I will also make some more videos on the specific concepts. Thank you.